Week 1, everybody. How about it? Give it up for week 1, guys. Week 1 of college football. Totally awesome, as it always is. Welcome back to 4th and Goal. We're going to start off today's episode with talking about some of the biggest happenings from last week's slate of games, how it may affect the future of the sport moving forward, and then we're going to go on to the highly anticipated matchup between playoff hopefuls, Texas and Michigan. You know, my dad always had a saying about fights. He said the person that throws the first punch in a fight wins about 95% of the time. And so last week, of course, college football was the winner of the fight because it delivered a knockout punch immediately through the Georgia Bulldogs absolutely dismantling Clemson for 4 quarters. This game had all the makings of a defensive slugfest going into halftime. It was then that Georgia offensive coordinator Mike Bobo looked at his playbook and realized he had more than one sheet of plays. Upon looking further, he discovered that there were tons of vertical passing options for his offense to run, and he implemented them to devastating effect on the overmatched Tigers defense. Clemson head coach Dabo Swinney had gone into this game talking so much crap about how his program was still among the top ones in the nation, and how he was going to hang with the number 1 program in the country for all 4 quarters. Well, what happened instead was his offense showcased absolutely zero playmakers, and his defense got absolutely worked by a more physical opponent after halftime. While many prominent college football media personalities had thought that this was going to be a very close competitive game, those of us with at least half a brain saw this blowout coming from a mile away. First and foremost, the 4th and Goal model, which picked Georgia to win by at least 40 points and ended up producing a number that was way closer to the actual score than even the Vegas Sharps. Long story short, Georgia is still really, really good, and even the transfer portal probably can't save Clemson at this point. Another Week 1 game with massive ramifications was Miami at Florida, a game in which Miami quarterback Cam Ward stepped into the swamp, saw the hopes and dreams of the Florida fans practically on life support, and then decided, whether right or wrong, to go ahead and put those hopes and dreams out of their misery. He sliced up the Gators' defense en route to a 41-17 win that all but ended the Billy Napier era in Florida. This strong showing by Miami in a hostile environment establishes them as the prime contender for the ACC title, and, therefore, a contender for one of the top 4 auto bid spots in the new college football playoff. The state of the Florida Gators, meanwhile, can best be summed up in about 5 words.
Oh no! We suck again!
The definitive outcome in this game has Miami fans believing for the first time in a long time that the U is actually back this time. Florida Gators fans, meanwhile, are bailing on this season faster than New England Patriots bandwagons when Tom Brady went to Tampa Bay. While we would like to congratulate Miami fans on having the first glimmer of hope they've had in almost a decade or two, we would like to remind Florida fans that it's going to be okay. Unless you guys hire Jimbo Fisher, then you guys might want to become Alabama fans or something. Perhaps the only big game that lived up to the billing on Saturday was Notre Dame at Texas 8-4, a game in which Notre Dame basically locked down a playoff spot by winning the only game they would not be favored in this year, while Texas 8-4 played like the Texas 8-4 we all know and laugh at from the past few years. Notre Dame's veteran defense made Texas 8-4's offense into an absolute crap show for the entire game, while the Notre Dame rushing attack was a little slow to start off, but then absolutely leaned on the Aggies' defense in the 4th quarter to ice this game. Texas 8-4's raucous home crowd environment and the perceived talent edge basically amounted to nothing when the 4th quarter rolled around, and they got absolutely steamrolled on both lines of scrimmage by Notre Dame. This showing will give them very little reason for optimism that they will be anything better than 8-4 by the time the season ends. While most of the country's top-ranked teams that played cupcakes produced scores the likes of which you would only see in freshman mode in the College Football 25 video game, there are 2 teams in particular that underachieved to levels that probably gave their fan bases massive amounts of heartburn. And we would be remiss if we, on 4th and Goal, did not call out these teams for the frauds they probably are. The Oregon Ducks, considered by many to be a championship contender this year, found themselves in their own building in a 1-score game with Idaho. Hang on, wait. Hey, stats and info. Hey, what is Idaho's mascot game? Like, are they the potatoes, the French fries? Like, what?
Oh, it's actually none of those. Their official mascot is the Vandals. So the Idaho Vandals is their team name.
Okay, shut up. Okay, shut up. As I was saying, Oregon was struggling mightily against an FCS opponent in their own building, finding themselves in a one-score game deep in the fourth quarter. Oregon's miserable performance was highlighted by the struggles along the offensive line, which gave up 4 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, and allowed their running backs to rush for less than 3 yards a carry. For a team that was moving to a more physical conference in the Big Ten, this was about as disastrous a performance as you could get. Our second underachiever of the week was last year's national champions, the Michigan Wolverines, who were featuring a new-look team this year that did not rely on stolen signs from their opponents in order to win games. Much like Oregon, Michigan found themselves in a one-score game deep into the fourth quarter with vastly inferior competition. Much of this was due to an offensive performance that was more stagnant and sluggish than a line at the DMV. Although Michigan's defense eventually put this game away by doing what the offense couldn't, which is score points, this dreadful offensive showing left Michigan fans with very little hope heading into next week's big matchup, which is going to be the final topic of this week's episode. Week 2's biggest game will be Texas at Michigan, a game in which the Wolverines find themselves scrambling to preserve any sort of national respect, while the Texas Longhorns will be looking to do to Michigan exactly what they did to Alabama in Week 2 of last season. On paper, the personnel matchups in this game look incredible, with Heisman hopeful Quinn Ewers and his new array of pass catchers going up against Will Johnson and the ferocious Wolverines secondary. Additionally, Texas, which lost 2 of its best run defenders from last year, will be facing up against an offense that likes to run even more than Forrest Gump. Michigan's cringeworthy performance against Fresno State has changed the national perception of this game. What was once viewed as a potential game of the year is now viewed as a likely decisive Texas victory, a sentiment which is reflected by the 4th and goal model. Our model is picking Texas to win by at least 2 scores. While we believe that this game may be fun to watch for at least 2 quarters, watch for Texas to eventually do what Ohio State cannot and silence the Big House. That'll do it for this week's episode of 4th and Goal. But before we head out, we'd like to take reckless action in order to get the best company in the world to finally sponsor us. Here we go. Alright, so look, hey, Dr. Pepper, if I chug this, you have to sponsor us, okay? No ifs, ands, or buts. I know you didn't agree to this, but, life sucks sometimes. Oh my gosh. Wow. See, nobody else does this. Why haven't they sponsored us yet?